So, comrades, greetings and welcome to our usual Sundays study group, where in fact, this is a book reading session where we read the book, but primarily we also discuss the books and understand, share our thinking in regards to what is written in the book. So, we've been doing a review of the book called Defeating Dictators by Georgia Iti, and we've been learning on various issues, indigenous traditional setup. Now we are looking at institutional checks against autocratic chiefs. Initially, we were looking at various means as well to keep despots at bay, which was basically issues to do with how the despots could be kept at bay, including private and public means, spiritual and religious ways as well. So those are what we look at in our last class, and then today we are going down a bit to look at other means as well in this our reading today. So here we are looking at the institutional ones. How did the members who are close to the dictator or the so-called the chief could then keep the chief or the king at check? So the institutional ones we are looking last time, as I've said, were religious and supernatural sanctions, private and public dominations, and prohibition against office of chieftaincies. Now we are looking at institutional checks against autocratic chiefs, where we expect to look at the royal family, the inner privy council, the council of elders, and eventually we are also going to look at the final defense, which is the feet. We expect to go through this today, and if we get more chance, we will then go to the next one. But we will start by the reading, and we'll read the 3 or the 4 means at once, then we share thinking in regards to that, and we'll get to the next text. So as usual, anybody who is willing to read for us, please feel free. And permit me to recognize the presence of Brother Barry, Sister Tapua, Sister Chisomo, and Sir Window. Once again, comrades, feel most welcome to our class. Thank you. So please, anybody who is willing to do the reading for us.
Yes, I could read. That's all right, if that's okay.
Go ahead, sister. Thank you.
Right. Institutional checks against autocratic chiefs, the royal family. Recall that the chief is chosen. The queen or clan mother or the clan chiefs consult with elders and dignitaries of the royal family and make a selection, which must be ratified by the Council of Elders. If the chief drifts towards despotism or shirks his responsibilities, he brings shame to the royal family. It is the duty of the queen to scold, reprimand, and rebuke such an errant chief. If she fails in this duty, she herself could be deposed in some tribal systems. This is often the first line of defense against despotism. Sorry.
Go ahead, sister. We want to read all of them, then we discuss all of them at once.
All right. Okay, I think the screen keeps jumping about. Okay, hold on. The Inner Privy Council. The second check against despotism is the Privy Council of Advisors, a small group drawn mainly from the inner circle of the chief's relatives and personal friends, who may include influential members of the community. The duty of the advisors is not only to serve as a sounding board, but also to keep a check on the chief's behavior. If he errs, the advisors speak to him privately, and if necessary, reprimand him. If the chief persists in his despotic ways and refuses to listen to his advisors, they might abandon him. And if this check fails, there is a third, which is the most important, the Council of Elders. Move too fast, move too far. Right. The Council of Elders. The council is the representative body of the commoners and must be consulted in crafting any law. Without this council, the chief has no power. He can make no laws by himself. Council approval or unanimity is indeed on all matters is needed on all matters affecting the community. If the chief acts autocratically, the elders might ask the queen. Sorry, my screen keeps moving. Okay. If the chief acts autocratically, the elders might ask the queen mother to recall him and select another chief. Indigenous societies have also provided avenues for rulers to interact with the people. The Akan, for example, provide their people with an opportunity to admonish their rulers at certain festivals. The Ashanti had the Odwira festival, at which the ruler gave a public account of himself. The people could express displeasure at his misrule by boos and hisses. In fact, they could do more. They could take legal action against the oppressive ruler. This practice also existed in ancient Persian Empire, in the ancient Persian Empire. When the Persian king granted public audience in the open to all his subjects at the Nowruz and Mihigran celebration, anyone could make petitions or complaints, including ones that were against the king himself. Sorry. Okay. If a complaint was presented against him, he immediately got down from the throne upon reading it, took the crown from his head and placed it on the empty throne, and turning to the supreme spiritual lord who sat beside him, handed him the complaint on knees and begged him to hold inquiry in the case and pronounce an impartial judgment. If this was pronounced against the great king, he immediately had to make amends to the wronged party before wearing again the crown and resuming the throne. This example was intended to serve as a warning to all officials in the empire to behave justly towards those under them and to remedy promptly any wrongs brought to their notice. Indeed, there were instances where prominent officials failed to do so. Such was the case. To move up. Sorry, I don't have the next page. Sorry, I don't have the next page.
Can you see the highlighted
No,
page?
I don't have the next page. Thank you. Such was the case of the Grand Marshal of the Marshes in Azerbaijan, who had been appointed to rule that province in the days of Zosor the Great. An old woman had brought a petition against him. It was found on a careful inquiry that the governor had amassed a huge fortune by a tyrannous and unjust rule. At the instances of the great king, the Grand Senate sat in judgment on that ruler and, finding him guilty, pronounced on him the capital punishment, which was forthwith executed. Ooh. The final defense, the feet. If a tyrannical chief or a ruler manages to overrun the various lines of defense, the people might exercise the exit option. That is, they vote with their feet to go and settle somewhere else. The chief cannot stop them because he has no instrument of force or coercion to do so. The history of the world is full of such migrations of people which still continue today, evidenced by the millions of political and economic refugees.
Thank you, sister. So let's share our thinking in regards to those measures that have been shared here, in regards to keep the chiefs in check. So let's go first. I'll give at least 5 minutes per person, or even up to 7, because we have discussed almost 4 things. So I'll start with the first one. You are free to share your thinking in regards to this. So let's share our thinking in regards to this royal family, or you do it as general, but at least you have between 3 to 7 minutes to share your thinking in regards to all. So who want to go first? Anybody want to start sharing their thinking in regards to this?
I could possibly just comment on this first one, maybe a minute or two, on the royal family.
You can comment on the first one, royal family. I can also take you to the second one, like that, so that maybe we can go through all of it and you share your comments in all of them. So start with the first one.
Okay. I'm really impressed by how the royal family would act as a corporate, because once they chose one person to be the face of the royal family, you have responsibilities of different people in the royal family to curb this person from running away with power. And I think that really makes sense, because if the person chosen to be the king or queen falters, then the whole system fails and every person has to step up, even the queen mother, to scold and reprimand and rebuke such an errant chief. And of course, if she fails, then, right. So I think that's very responsible. At least there's someone there to check, because I'm not sure if we had in our systems our presidents getting reprimanded by their parents, I think it would make a difference, because some of them are really running away with murder. So,
Sister Tapo, can you consider the royal family being like the political parties, like you see now what happened in the ANC in South Africa? Or look at, for example, the community that the president comes from. So if he fails, for example, if he fails to perform well, you see the party takes the responsibility to recall the leader, like what happened in South Africa or in UK, because the party do not want any shame or failure upon them as a party, you see? So sometimes they add to heart. But of course, it's not common in many African countries where the party belongs to the president. So the president is actually not appointed as a presidential candidate or a president of a country, but rather is also the party leader of the party. But even if he is the party leader of the party, realize that the party do not exercise power to recall him directly. I'll go back to the community. If a president is, of course, elected by the majority, but comes from a community, it's like one community taking responsibility to call their president who misbehaves by either the leaders of the community to ensure that the community's image and reputation is kept. Because if the community is appearing to be producing dictators, then people will never trust such community. So that's what I'm also trying to relate to what you're saying to the current context.
Yes, but I think what happens in our communities or in our countries is we are generally aware that this person comes from this group, but they don't attribute their status to the group. They attribute their status to having been chosen by the majority of the country. So depending on what's happening, either latch onto the fact that they're from this group. When it's inconvenient, they move away and claim to be part of, because it's not a legitimate way of political parties to acknowledge that I'm this tribal party, because they claim to be the national party. So that's how it becomes tricky as far as I can see.
Thank you, sister. Before you move to the next paragraph, probably Sawindo has something to say. Sawindo?
I wanted to add something.
The council is supposed to help us with the bins, isn't it?
Yeah, they're supposed to be taking them out. I did email them. Why?
The guy upstairs, one, said we should leave the bin in the garden and then bring it out in time.
Hey, I think we need someone to.
Sawindo?
Yes, I was listening to Brother Barry.
I know, taking the bin out.
Yeah. Now, what I wanted to say is political parties are sometimes different and they don't have parents' figures.
Yes.
In most cases, the leaders are the children and the parents at the same time. Because I remember a case here in Namibia of the ruling SWAPO under President Sam Nujoma. When people were questioning things, he sometimes told them outrightly, this is my SWAPO, and if you are not happy, go and start your own SWAPO. And as for you, Brother Pidgin, if you have started a political party, you will easily become a despot, a dictator. Because people will come and try to wrestle the party away from you just out of greed, not that you are a good leader. And that's why sometimes leadership should have an element of dictatorship, because you have sometimes to force people to take a specific or a defined route because you know what the objectives are and when the objectives should be reached. I don't know whether I'm making sense.
Yes, you are.
I submit.
Can I come in? Oh,
Okay. Sister Chisena?
yeah, no, I just want to agree with, is it Sally Windog who was speaking just now?
Yes.
Yeah, the bit about, you see, I've always argued, especially, let's say, in the last elections when people were saying, oh, these parties, they should now hand them over to the young people. They should, the elders should now step down and leave it to the young people. And I'm thinking, you don't just hand over things, you earn them, you have to work for them. Have they ever asked how these people started these parties and to reach the stage that it is now? And as far as I can see, it's like any other business. You start a business, you grow it, it grows. And then you have people, like you're saying, wanting to take it away. And then you have to kind of defend it because it was formed for a certain purpose with certain beliefs and objectives. And people just want to say, no, give it to us because we're young, because we're this, because we're that. But can you really run it? Do you really understand it? And I remember Arikana saying, I don't believe in people who just say, oh, give it to us because you're young, when they don't even understand the issues or they don't know the background of it, how it came to be. So to me, it's like it's a business. It was about a party that was in power last time, and how it came about, and how they made it work, and how it becomes so successful. And I'm thinking that's when the element go and set up your own and do what you need to do becomes the answer to it, because people are so abusive. They become so abusive for you to hand over this power without even telling the people what they're going to do for them, because you have to be able to tell us that this government is doing it wrong. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do that for you. But they don't even do that. It's just give, take. And we still don't know. People will approach you and say, oh, can you help me with my party? Can you give me some money? And then you say to them, what are you going to do for us? They just keep quiet and they stop talking to you. So it's those kind of little bits. And like you're saying, you have to have some kind of dictatorship to it for people to actually understand you. Yeah, that's what. And I remember Gaddafi even saying, democracy doesn't work in this part of the world. We have a certain way of governing ourselves, because people in power, elders, have to be respected in a certain way. You can't just say democracy and then start abusing people for no reason. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So in this first round of our thinking, we're trying to look at how the Queen Mother was to be responsible if the chief is becoming despot. And I think that then shows that there was a level of accountability and responsibility. So the first level of a check is within the house, the royal family. And like today, where the royal family or the first family or the first whatever do not actually take into level of questioning or holding their so-called either wife or a husband who are president accountable, but rather they enjoy the loot of the countries by their so-called sons or daughters who then become leaders of countries. But here is very critical situation that's coming in, that the royal family itself was responsible to ensure that their either son or daughter, who, for example, the son or daughter become the chief, is actually working in a manner that is responsible to the family or to the community or to the larger society. And if they fail to hold the leader accountable, you see, we are told that if she fails in this duty, she herself could be disposed in some tribal systems. That is very important.
Yeah, we don't have that today. In fact, they just go along with it, and they're even more abusive than they are the person in power. So I don't know.
I've got a question that I've put in the chat there. Are our political parties behaving like royals? Because in a certain way, we find that they feel entitled. That's why, for example, the Kenyatas think they own the throne, or the Mugabes were working at it, or families think this is ours. And they're actually leaving some of the founders of the parties behind, because now you have families laying claim. And then the Queen Mother, as in our case, and I'm putting Queen in quotation marks here, would run around the country with her own agenda and seeming unstoppable, and no one voted for her, but she behaves like a Queen Mother. And it's gone so bad. Sorry.
No,
and it's gone so bad to the extent that the spouses of the president are meeting leaders of other countries with their children to discuss country matters, when ministers who are responsible for holding the portfolios are not even there. They don't know what's going on. And we start asking, who elected you? Because we have no power to depose them, because they feel entitled, because there is no shame. We don't have any means to shame them. Because the way they accumulate and rob the people, people don't even know you can recall your MP. And if you try to, like we're trying to to recall our president here, games will be played to make sure that doesn't go through in parliament. So it's sad, very sad.
I think it's because we don't have the king and queen. I don't know, in my country, we don't have a royal family per se. So the royal family becomes the first couple, the one we call the president and the first lady. And I remember with the first president, we literally called it a royal family, trying to equate it to the king and queen of England. So we called them the royal family. So they become it, and then they behave in the way that you're explaining. The president is the man, and then the wife, who is the first lady, then assumes a certain position that's questionable, like you're saying, as to where is she getting all this power, which was the case with Kamuzu. And he wasn't even married. Kamuzu never married in Malawi. He never did. But he lived with a woman he called a hostess. That was her title. But then they lived like
Was that
husband and
Mama
wife.
Catamira?
Yes.
Was she?
She was a hostess. That's what her title was. But then in the middle of it, she'll call her, oh, Mama Catamira, and things like that. And then people said, oh, the family tried to ask him to marry, and he wouldn't. And but she was extremely powerful. And she became powerful than the president himself.
What I want
including her sisters.
What I want us not to lose in this conversation is the responsibility of the first family, in this case, the family of the president, to hold the presidents accountable.
But that's what we're explaining, that they don't. Instead, they become more powerful than the person they're supposed to be supporting. They then become more abusive than the president himself. So they can't check the president what he's doing. In fact, they'll be telling off the president for not doing what she wants him to do, which is the Mugabe case, which is the Kamuzu case, and all these other cases.
We actually have a situation where ours, because lithium was just passing through the borders like it was porous. And the responsible people at the borders tried to stop it from going through. She came in person and literally pulled the man by his trouser belt in front of people. And it was in the news. And nobody could do anything about it. And people lost their jobs.
So it's becoming not clearly that then we should demand that the first level of accountability to presidents to behave and work in a way that is responsible must first of all come from their first families. They say behind every successful man is a woman. So the woman behind that successful man or the woman behind that despot must first of all be accountable. But instead, well, actually the people sometimes even contribute to that level of extravagance and level of despotism. Because you realize, like in Kenya here, most of records indicate that the time that the President Kenyatta, the first president, was in power, most of the land were actually amassed by his wife, the mother of the former president. All records of land are actually in the name of the wife, not the husband, the former president, the first president. The first lady by that time was actually involved in a business of sending the elephant tusk. She actually is recorded in some of the book, went to the 78 million in cash, Kenya shillings, to London and bought apartment in London, which still belongs to the family up to date. So as you're saying, actually, instead of the first ladies of the first family holding the presidency or the leadership accountable, that the people who then actually become and indulge in corruption. Like now in Kenya, the son of the president, is actually seen buying public vehicles. His drivers who run his public vehicles do not obey any traffic rule. And when the vehicles has been bounded by the police officers, he recently came out and said that they should never touch his vehicle because he's following the law. So there are critical issues where the first family is failing. And I think that's what we need to come out with in this lesson. That the first families in our traditional society were the first check to ensure that their spouses or their parent or their father or whatever did not become a dictator. But today, they're the beneficiaries of dictatorship.
But
Yes.
then I
Can I
think,
just add?
yeah, carry on.
Sorry. No, okay. I wanted to add that we saw the difference between Mugabe and Sally Mugabe, and Mugabe and his second wife. There was such a contrast because you could almost sense the extent to which Sally had worked to try and keep Robert in line. And when she passed on, oh, hell was unleashed. Because I feel the First Lady was young and not as educated. I don't mean formally educated, but just streetwise. She wasn't able to understand the ramifications of what she would do, to such an extent that she is on record as having taken over people's housing cooperatives, got the money that they were putting together and built herself a house. But the spouses are critical. And this is making me ask, if I'm looking at a presidential candidate, should I worry about the spouse? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the difference between a real king and queen kind of setup and a political setup is different, obviously. Let's say the Charles family, the UK family, it's there for as long as UK lives. Whereas the political parties, they've only got to begin with the 5 years. So when they know that the 5 years, we might not go beyond that, that's when they start, isn't it? To get as much as they can out before, and because I suppose the husband is at work, the wife is the one who is around, and she starts getting involved in acquiring things and moving things around, and I suppose that becomes her role of collecting all these things and moving them around. We've just had a case whereby the last two parliamentary sitting, the argument was about the same. This minister saying, where is the money that was supposed to be allocated to me? You promised me so much, but the money went to the wife, to the wife to be used for something else. I want my money. I want my money. I want my money. So that became, but they never addressed what actually happened to this money and why this woman took the money and what she did with it.
And how could she take the money? How could she? I'm saying,
I don't know how they do. They move money around. If nobody mentions it, it just keeps moving. And then the other thing you mentioned about Sally Mugabe and Grace, that's a situation I just thought about that we don't talk about in Malawi. Because remember, Bingu was married to a Zimbabwean woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she died whilst he was in office, and then he remarried somebody else. The first term with the other Zimbabwean wife was so successful. People was like, this is it. Malawi has now arrived. Second term just flopped completely. So whether it's to do with the first wives, the first and the second, I don't know. But we had a similar case. When it came to the second term with second wife, the whole thing just fell apart completely.
And the trend is if the president is kept in check by the wife dies.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't think about that one either. I suppose,
So-
because I remember seeing a Nigerian film, but it was a pastor and wife. So people were using the wife to go and do whatever to the husband.
Oh no.
So she finally agreed. And the I think the husband was removed, and then they tried to make her the pastor. So I think in these cases, if you're not agreeing, that's when you die first. And then another one comes who then goes along with the opposition, with the whoever is trying to oppose your husband, which is what happened then in Malawi. So he then dies, and then brother takes over, and then wife start attacking brother, trying to depose him and mobilizing people seriously to get this brother off power. That's when they create this Chilima guy, who was they go through the vice president to depose him, and they failed. So they took the vice president out to form another party, who then forms this party. Remember, he's still the vice president. He's still being paid by taxpayers' money as vice president, but he set up another party. Then he colludes with the opposition, the MCP party. They form an alliance. They claim this one has rigged the elections, so let's run them again. And then they run them again, changed all the laws to make sure he doesn't win again. And then they win, and then they put this other, unfortunately, he puts this other guy in party, not himself. And in the end, they killed each other. So
Okay.
people are continuously
Okay.
dying in the process.
Okay, thank you for that. No,
that is the law of the jungle. Kill or be killed.
okay, let's get to the next level of this. So we have been looking at the first level of accountability to a king who want to become a despot or a chief. In this case, it's either the presidency. And the writing is very clear. The first level or the first line of defense against despotism is the royal family. In this case, is the queen mother, the clan mother, who have the responsibility to first of all get in touch with their son or the whatever is who is the king to remind them not to be despots. And if the chief drifts towards despotism or shrinks his responsibility, he brings the shame to the entire royal family. So the entire family took over the consequences of failure by their king or their chief. Now he says that it is the duty of the queen mother to scold, reprimand, rebuke such an errant chief. And if she fails in this duty, she herself could also be disposed from the community. This is the first line of defense against despotism in African traditional setup. Let's look at the second line of defense, which we are actually comparing this first line with what's going on contemporary. In contemporary setup, we believe that the first family, the president's family, either the wife, should be the first line that plays the same responsibility the royal family played then. But they're not doing that. Based on the conversation we have all over here, is that they're not doing that. Currently, they're the beneficiary of despotism. They're the beneficiaries who loot and who even become more desperate than their husbands. Some wives have become more radical, and in fact, they even have a budget, demanding budget for their offices, budget for the first daughter of the president, and everything else. They want allocation, and they're looting the society instead of being the first defense against despotism. But let's look at the second defense, then we can also share our thinking in this. The second defense, if the first line is also not working, is the inner privy council. The second check against the despotism is the Privy Council of Advisors, a small group drawn mainly from the inner circle of the chief's relatives and personal friends. This is where the advisors were coming from, relatives and personal friends, who may include influential members of the community. The duty of the advisors is not only to serve as a sounding board, but also to keep a check on the chief's behavior. If he errs, the advisors speak to him privately and if necessarily reprimand him. If the chief persists, in its despotic ways and refuses to listen to the advisors, they might abandon him. And if these checks fail, there's still another third line of defense. So let's discuss this. If really, what do you think about this second line of defense? And maybe compare it to what's going on today. What do you think about that?
Yeah, the advisors, the Council of Advisors, usually those members who wants to go against the wishes and aspirations of the ruler, they are just being sidelined and become obsolete. Amongst themselves, the ruler who has drifted towards despotism, he also captures some of them. And he starts, this that he has captured, he starts instigating them against the rest who seems to be against his type of rule. And those other ones are just shamed and rendered absolute, and the despot continues what he wants to do. So I don't know how.
Sawidok, does it mean that then the presidents have the advisors, but it seems it's the president that advises the advisors? Not the other way
Exactly the point. Not the other way around. Yes. That's why, even in the case of President Ruto, when agencies are standing up, who's advising him? To whose advice is he listening that he must do this or he must not do that? It seems like he's just doing what he wants to do. Our leaders are free of advice. They don't have advice. They don't have advisors. Even in an official government position, you see somebody is appointed as the advisor to the governor, is the advisor to the minister, or is advisor to the president. But the president advised them what to do, or the governor advised them what to do. They just follow. They are just like small little doggies. They can't come with their own line of thought. They have to make sure that their line of thought is in congruence with the line of thought of the people they are supposed to be advising. Otherwise, you just go past them without saying good morning.
Otherwise, they lose their job.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome, Brother Coco, to the conversation. We want to also share their thinking in regards to that line.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the character. Because when we look at what Ruto is doing.
Sister Chizomo, can I interject there?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, before you come. Even in the case of deputy ministers, the deputy ministers are predominantly supposed to be advising the ministers. But even if the minister is not in the office, the minister will go for another minister to be acting in his position and not the deputy minister. So that is in fact keeping the deputy minister in check, whereas he's the one who's supposed to be kept in check. Thank you, Sister Chizomo.
I've forgotten what I was going to say.
Sorry.
No, I was saying it depends on the character. Because if you see what Ruto, well, this is from outside. I don't know what the real situation is inside or among Kenyans. But my observation would be, as we're saying, Ruto, things would happen, he would respond. Things would happen, he would respond. And the way he responded, there is no way that anybody was telling him to say or do what he was saying. It was out of his own decision or whatever he wants to respond or however he wants to respond. Whereas in other cases, you have presidents that are just there, that are just put there by the surrounding people. For example, I'll give an example of our current case. whereby this political party belonged, remember, to Kamuzu, and then his right-hand man, which was also like a family, who was the uncle to Mama Kadzamira, right? So it's like passed on through the family. And then when the other man told us that because this guy was no longer popular, we decided to change the leadership. So we needed somebody that people could trust, that people could like, perhaps. So they went and got this pastor from one church, Assemblies of God, who is now the president currently. He had no experience in government. He'd never worked in government. All he knew was being a pastor for this church. So they bring him in. But remember, everybody else is from the old system. So he is the new guy. So they managed, well, he wasn't successful previously in winning any of the elections. So he gets in through, remember, the vice president who is coming from the ruling party, from the other ruling party. So they managed to put him on the ballot paper. And that's how he wins, through the alliance. So that's how he wins. So which means, remember, he has no experience, he has no nothing and no nothing. Instead, he does what he's told. I don't know whether these guys are advisors or owners of the party or whoever. He doesn't speak, he doesn't seem to be giving us his opinion or his judgment or his decision. He is told, this is what our observation is. He's told what to say, what to do, to the extent that the past couple of years, he doesn't respond outright. He takes long, meaning he's waiting. He's waiting on what he should be saying. Then he comes out, he reads this paper. He will read this paper like the national, what do you call it, SONA? What's SONA again? There's this abbreviation, that this national address that they make every year or whatever. So anyway, he makes
State-
this address.
State of the yes.
That's the one. So he reads this paper. He goes, suddenly everybody's up in arms that he lied. He lied about this, about that, so people are just shredding the whole address to pieces. He lied about these people, went to the places that he was talking about that he's developed, there was nothing, and they were posting these things. So people were like, does he not know what's going on to even tell that they've lied to me? This one I should not say because this one is a lie. But because these guys want him power to continue so they can convince the public that they're doing well for the country. But because of social media, people will pick up on it and say it's a lie. So there were so many lies in that address. So which means somebody is advising him. I don't know whether it's the advisors or the politicians or whatnot, but it's the other way around for us. So
Okay.
whoever is advising him just gets things so wrong. It's unbelievable.
Sister Tapua?
Yes. I'll bring to the fore the contrast between the royal family and the advisors. I'd wanted to point out that the Queen Mother plays a role, a very important role. And I think we've erroneously equated the wife to the Queen Mother. In our African context, a mother is very powerful. And a mother will be able to advise a son. Unfortunately, in our situation, or at least for Zimbabwe, to a large extent, or for Africans, we don't have young presidents who have mothers who are alive and with it. Because if we had, then possibly the mothers would be would feel the shame and maybe advise their children not to. I'm thinking of Robert Mugabe. Robert Mugabe's mother lived for a very long time. And during the life of his mother, I think he behaved himself. And I would like to think that it was possibly because she had a word or two to say to him as a former teacher. But on the advisors, I'm feeling, my sense is they lack a moral compass. They lack Ubuntu. In other words, they've been co-opted to be advisors, to loot, to support the agenda of the person who's in power in a capitalist system. So they see themselves as having been elected to share in the cake and will not rock the boat. Whereas in an ancient setting where there were consequences, and I'm assuming that everybody felt the sense of Ubuntu more keenly than we do today, it then became apparent that they were advising the leader on how to cater for the people. The current advisors that we have in the political systems that we have are advisors on how to stay in power, not how to cater for the people or look after the people's interests. No, that's way out. It's too much. No one would want to risk to be reshuffled, because the president would reshuffle ever so often in certain instances. You start to wonder. And in our situation, there's suspicion that because there are rumors that our president is now demented,
This one.
demented, is now suffering from dementia. That's a disease.
Mm-mm.
Some people
Sister Tapua?
Sorry, Sister Tapua. Sister Tapua,
Yes.
I wanted to unmute
Sister-
Chisomo because of the background noise, but I ended up unmuting you. Sorry for that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I noticed.
Okay, go ahead, please. Sorry.
Okay. No, I was saying it's because the advisors in an ancient setting, I feel, would have been more conscious of the principles, Ubuntu, looking after the people. So they were advising because both the leader and them had the people's interests at heart. Whereas in today's political system, where competition is the key, and competition is very anti-Ubuntu, people who are then elected as advisors feel obliged to support the person who was won. And therefore they deify them and put them on a higher stool because he's the one who's won, he's appointed me, and therefore I should share in the cake. So I think that's why this might not work as a way of curbing despotism in our time.
Thank you. Brother
Thank
Coco,
you.
do you want to weigh in?
Greetings, comrades. I am humbled to be in your midst today. And I think once my sister Tapua has said her stuff, she has already said it for the majority of us who espouse and embrace Ubuntu. So what I just want to add to what she said is that what we are comparing here is an apple and an orange. So we are not comparing apples here. We're actually comparing apples and oranges, because colonialism came and toppled our chieftainship, which got all the power from the people, all right? And replaced that with autocrats who once in a while come in and campaign for votes. Hence, you cannot expect people like that to respect the people who have voted them in. What they normally do is that they make people feel like they are gods. So let's get that right. These people make people feel like they are gods. It cannot be the same system. In the traditional sense, the chief is like one of us. The chief is like one of us. That has to be important. There is that distinction between the two, because in Ubuntu we say morena ke morena ka setšhaba. What that means is the chief is only a chief by the virtue of the people who put him there. Is it clear? It's more or less, it rhymes with mutu ke motho ka batho. That's one of the principles of Ubuntu. You can only be a chief because the people put you there, and those people who put you there, you do what is best for them. You serve them. You do their bidding. But in this case, it's different. You understand? The president, he is the one who is escalated, who is sort of elevated to the highest, whatever you call it. He doesn't care about what he delivers or what she delivers for the people. It's a system. And that system is rooted in the Western philosophy of I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am. And it came again from Plato who put in the educated elite at the top. So most of these are people who are educated. Those people who are educated by the colonial standards. And these are not our standards. The colonial standard is of individualism. Individualism. There is a difference between individuality, which you find guaranteed under Ubuntu. Ubuntu is collective in nature, but it guarantees that you can also be the best that you can be within a society. And if you have that society helping you, then there are advisors, and those advisors you will listen to because they carry the message from the people. They represent the people under Ubuntu. But in this case, as a president, you are celebrity. You are royalty. You are the highest of the highest, according to them, which is, again, means, I don't know how to put it in English. It's wrong. It's totally wrong. The system we have is a system of domination. So as a president, you dominate everyone who you even put there, which I think one of you said that. You don't listen to what they say. They listen to what you tell them to do. Whereas it is different under Ubuntu. In Ubuntu, the councils, I mean, it came from all the way down from the grassroots levels. The village, the chief will have representatives. Everyone, every man and woman in this village is meant to have a say in how the village is run. And everyone has a voice. Their voice is guaranteed. Then they have to appoint people who go on to the district council. Then all of that is further escalated on and on until we get to the national level, in which the principal chiefs represent the words of what the people want on the ground level. We have those systems running in Lesotho at the moment, but it's just because of the stubbornness of the Basotho that we have managed to continue with the two systems, because they wanted to get rid of that and only have the democracy. There are some parties which stand for the abolition of the chieftainship. As they started to do that, a long time ago, when the colonial came in and took over from our ailing chief and wanted to get rid of his sons. But that never happened. It never happened. The people have refused because they say, we put these people there. They listen to us. So there's again that part of, you don't just put someone there to lead you, right? You choose who leads you. And under Ubuntu, the system guaranteed that you get people who are right to lead you. If they were not right, you topple them or you move on to the next chief in the next village. It's how it works. But in this case, whether you like them, you don't like them, they are yours. You are stuck with them for the next 5 years. So I can go on and on. I'm sorry, but governance is what I do. Governance, I understand governance, and I see it from my perspective, having seen what the British were trying to do in Lesotho and failed miserably. And in this case, it's one of the reasons why Lesotho remains independent within South Africa, because at one point, Lesotho was ruled indirectly from Cape Colony. And they told the Basotho to get rid of the guns. They actually banned the guns, the owning of guns by the black people. But whereas the white people continue to own guns. And when they wanted to enforce that rule in Lesotho, the Basotho stood up and said, that cannot happen. These are our sticks. These are our walking sticks. We keep them. It's a long story. Let me just cut it short to say the privy council, which you're talking about here, I know it exists in Lesotho. It advises the king now, but the king doesn't have as much power because the power lies with the prime minister. So it's more or less like the Westminster style, which they are running here in the UK. So Lesotho has been gravitating a lot towards the Westminster system. The king, his mother is no more, but when his mother was there, he will listen to his mother. So that is correct. It's true. But the privy council, I don't know how it's selected. But the privy council can also advise the king on how the prime minister runs the country and how, with regards to dissolving parliament and stuff like that. But let's not forget the power of those who hold our passes outside. So what you're saying here works within us in the country, but right now, Lesotho has had to give Elon Musk a license for Starlink to operate in Lesotho. So you can see that's neo-colonialism, and the king doesn't have a say in that. You understand? Now is Trump pushing Matekane to give a license to Starlink, and Elon Musk is ruling the country in a way, or Trump is ruling our country in a way. So this is something which is not covered here. Let me yield here. All right. If you have questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Coco, for your comments as well. We want to go to the Council of Elders based on time.
Brother Pigeon.
Yes.
Can I just make one comment?
Okay.
Sister Chisomo, you said this other president was told everything to read, even things that he was not there, even things that he does not know anything about it. That's what we call state capture. So you listen to too much of advice, you are captured. You listen to no advice, you are not good. Where do you draw the line? I yield.
Thank you, comrades.
In the interest of time.
Let's look at the Council of Elders. Do anyone has any comments or share their thinking in regards to how the Council of Elders work then as a third line of defense against despotism? Feel free to come in.
Let me go back to what I said before.
I've got a comment that is, hello?
Continue, Queen.
All right, thank you. I'm looking at the Council of Elders as the current parliaments that we have, if you're in the British system. But like I've said before, because of the lack of moral compass, you get the Council of Elders are captured. The Council of Elders are worried about their own position in the next 5 years. And in a situation such as we have in Zimbabwe, where the government is trying to change the constitution, they're trying to convince our Council of Elders that if the president's term is extended unconstitutionally, they would also extend theirs. Whereas the Constitution says, if there is any need to extend the term for a president, it's not the sitting president who would benefit. So they are now trying to pass a law to change that law so that they get it their way. And the sad thing is that once you get external influence coming in, as in the Chinese miners who are coming in to exploit or any other such, people get fed information and money and power blatantly. In our country, MPs have been getting 40,000 pounds from Norway, 120,000 pounds. They were offered stands the last time 2 weeks ago when they shut down the parliament because they were afraid of the impeachment that was going to take place, and so on. So it's all rigged. It's not the Council of Elders of old, the Council of Elders that had a moral compass to think of the people, to work for the people, to make sure the people were looked after. These are guys who are only looking after themselves and looking after their interests. And particularly because of the term, it's the 5-year term or the 4-year term that drives them to loot as much as possible in that period of time. And it's really sad for us as Africans, because we are way trying to copy something that is not good for us, that is not good for anybody. I mean, even in the UK where they're used to it, you get people suffering under such laws and exploitation. I yield.
Thank you, sister. Brother Coco wanted to come in.
Yes, what I wanted to say, which I think there's a poor cover to some extent, is we need to read this book along with Silent Coup by Claire Provost and Matt, I can't remember Matt's second name, but they looked at it from the influence of the corporate sector on the politicians. The other book is the New Confessions of an Economic Hitman. They are looking at all of those external influences on the politicians. And I think there is a video which I shared a long time ago in the CSG group, which was covering how that is happening, especially here in the UK. But most of that is not happening just in the UK, it's happening everywhere around the world. The British are doing it. They are using some of their former politicians to exert influences in our countries. So, for instance, right now, Somaliland has broken away from Somalia for a long time, but it's not being recognized by anyone around the world. But what they are doing, they are using people like Gavin Williams, who was a Secretary of State for Education here, Secretary of State for Defense at some point, to sort of drive influence, get people to recognize them as a legitimate government in Somaliland. But from what I hear, what I have read from the Africa report, is that the UK is using that state as a neo-colonialist, colony, a neo-colony, okay? And Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are also looking at that as a likely place where they are going to move the Palestinians from Gaza so they can rebuild and do that, whatever Riviera which they were looking at. So my point is, we have these people who we have chosen. We think we have chosen them, but somebody else holds sway on these people. Somebody holds sway on these people. It's the same as what happened when the Gaza war started. Instead of people responding to the people on the street to say, stop the war in Gaza, they responded to the Israel lobby. They responded to anyone else who has more power than the people. So it's the same. You can have a council of elders, but that council of elders cannot work in isolation in the present moment because someone else has power on them. Someone else calls the shots. And another book that we have to read and understand is Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky and his friend. I'll find the name. I'll find the book. You have it. We have shared it in there for a while. What we are doing is just a how do you call it? An illusion. We are making an illusion that we are running a democratic process. Every 5 years, we give these people power. They go ahead and do anything they want with the power we have given them. And that council of elders will be captured, as Welcome has observed. It is captured. What can we do? Do we have a point where we can pull back those politicians who are not performing right? Can we do that? You protesters as the youth in Kenya, what did you get back? Did you get some of those to come back? Yes, I think partly you did, because they removed some of their ministers, but you don't have a system in place in which you can recall those parliaments or parliamentarians who are not doing what you expect them to do, who are not competent enough. So all of this system is something that has to be reformed or restructured. There has to be a revolution based on what we know as Africans. We have to sankofa and look at what we had, which worked, and bring it back. There are things which we might want to retain from the current system, but what we had worked perfectly well.
Thank you. Yeah, basically what you're looking at is what worked then. That's why currently we're looking at how the indigenous societies, our societies, were able to actually confront this issue of dictatorship or despotism. Because today, the biggest challenge we face across the continent is despotism. It's leaders who don't want to get out of power. It's leaders who use excessive power. But it is evident that this is not something that started today. It even existed in our indigenous society. But then our indigenous society had a structure on how they could deal with this issue. Structure that is somehow copied, not fully, in the current setup, but do not serve the intention it served then. Because then, like for example, the Council of Elders, as you can see, was actually capable to keep the chief accountable. And it says that, for example, what I'm interested in, that you see there were avenues when the chief could be able to or the ruler could be able to interact with people directly. They say the account, for example, provided their people with an opportunity to admonish their ruler at certain festivals. The Ashanti.
Brother Bridget,
Yes.
Brother Bridget, can I interject? And this is to the whole group. The members of parliament in your country, they are voted by who?
The people.
Or they are elected by who?
The people.
Because in my country, it's like they are only voted by the party. The party selects its people that goes to parliament. They are not directly voted by the people.
Now in Kenya,
the Congress of the party that sits and selects.
Now in Kenya, the members of parliament are directly voted by the people. First, the parties, if you are interested to run for maybe member for local assembly, which you call the member of county assembly. If you are running for member of county assembly, for example, which is the local position, if you are more than 2 people, because the party have what you call the party primaries. So at the party primaries, individuals within that area, locality, can then front their names through the parties that they want to run for those positions. Today, in our constitution, there's an avenue to be an independent candidate. So you don't go through the party primaries. You just wait for the general election. So in the party primaries, the individuals who want to run for the same local positions can be 5 of them. If there are 5 of them, the party will hold what you call a party primary. In the party primary, the party will set up a date, and the registered members of the party within that locality will come out to vote, who then will hold the ticket of the party at the ballot. Once they get one person, of course, the problem is that sometimes the process is not transparent. But once they get one person, then the party ensure that that is the person they present the name or the names at the general election to be the representative of the party at that ballot level. So at that level of the general election, now there will be other parties with their candidates as well. So you might have 5 parties with their different candidates. And there might be independent candidates who don't belong to any party. They will also be on the ballot. Then the people vote again at the general level. And in my country, the people vote right from the member of local assembly up to the presidency on the same date. So they vote the member of, you get 6 ballot papers. You vote the member of local assembly, you vote the member of parliament, you vote a woman representative, you vote a senator, you vote a governor, and you vote a president on the same date. So then the election results come out at various levels. That's how we get up members of parliament. In my country, for example, if a member of parliament do not work as per the constitution provides for what we call a recall clause. So the citizens of that constituency are only required to collect a signature equivalent to a part of the population of the area the member represents. Once you collect a third signature of the people registered in that your area, you are enough to instigate now a recall process, and you take the signatures to the electoral body. The electoral body confirms that there are a third of the people in that community or in that area. Then the election will be conducted for a new fresh election. If the member want to come back for the election, is allowed to contest again. Even if the party do not want to remove the member, the citizens of that area can only collect a third of the signatures and take it to the electoral body. That only requires verification whether these people of that level are of that community or are of that constituency or that local assembly. But apart from that, what I wanted to comment on in this particular moment is how the people could express their grievances or their anger to a president. And they say, Ashanti had the Odua festival, at which the ruler gave a public account of himself. The people could express displeasure at his misrule by boos and hisses. In fact, they could do more. They could take legal action against the provincial ruler. In Kenya, it has been very rampant since people became against Ruto. They objected Ruto. So in any bars and restaurants at night, nightclubs, it could reach sometimes the DJ could just play Ruto must go, or the people could just sing Ruto must go. In the clubs when they're drunk, in football matches and football platform, even up to date, the people saying Ruto must go. There was an international continental football match that was played. I don't know, it was between Gambia or Gabon with Kenya, and the citizens, and in fact, Ruto was in the stadium watching the football. The people started chanting Ruto must go. In most of the public rallies where they go and present their speeches, the people could start telling liar, must go, liar. So the people are trying actually even to do what was done back then. And in legal action, the Constitution of Kenya allows citizens to instigate a legal action against a sitting president. And that is still also allowed. So this is what worked then. Can it work now? And the answer is, of course, we have different structures, but almost same structures. Like now, the Council of Elders appear to be like our parliament today. But do they really have the guts to act as the Council of Elders acted then? And what need to be done? So yes, anybody want to come in on that as team? Mr. Tapua?
Oh, yes. Okay. I just wanted to add to what Winbook was referring to, because there is a sense that the Council of Elders that we have feel that they owe their positions to the party, not to the people. In other words, if a particular party gets somebody into power, they are then beholden to uphold a party position and not necessarily represent everybody in that constituency. And I've found that such a problem in this part of the world, contrasted with what's happening in areas that I've lived in the UK, because you can approach an MP and you don't have to produce your party card to talk to them. But in this part of the world, you have to produce your party card. So people have several party cards and they will play different cards, like a card game. So I think we have a problem there, because although, for example, we have systems that can allow us to express our displeasure, in this country, it's difficult to even apply to hold a peaceful demonstration. You have to jump through hoops. You find the other party is allowed to, but you're not. And I was just thinking about the fact that there's someone organizing march supporting Burkina Faso. And I'm not sure it's going to happen in Zimbabwe, because right now we are in a very difficult situation where politics is playing a hand that's getting people not to go to work, and so on and so on and so on, to add on to a gathering that could change course and possibly interfere with the current government position would be untenable for them. So there's a lot of fear, so much that although the Constitution allows for people to protest, means to protest, they're not allowed to. And that becomes problematic. I actually liked the fact that the symbolic example of, if somebody protested at a public gathering, the king would have to take off his crown and put it on the seat and actually step down. That's important. That's a very important symbol, which we are failing to execute in Zimbabwe, because at every election time, I like what the Americans do. The sitting president leaves the official accommodation and then has to come back in. That's so important. We need to have that in place so that a person doesn't think that they're here to stay and here to stay forever. They need to pack their bags, get out. When the results are announced, get back in. I yield.
Thank you, sister, for sharing your thought. Anybody else want to come in before we look at the last line of defense?
Allow me to say, in our countries, it's more like here in this country, where the party chooses the representatives that people will be voting on. Okay, so the elections are on a national level, but even at local levels, you get there because a party structure chose who they want to represent, and by so doing, we are electing what the party has dictated. It's not who we want to stand for us. We don't do that at the local level. And local level, again, is split from a national level. I guess you understand what I'm saying. There is a subtlety there in that the party chooses who their representatives are. Let's say in the constituency in which I am here in northwest London, the Conservative Party has chosen who has to represent it here. I didn't have a choice in that person, so I only have to go and vote on what Conservative Party, Labour Party have chosen. And again, the way the first past the post runs in this country is that if you are in a conservative heartland, your voice doesn't matter. You just have to pick whoever the MP is of the majority of the people. So the system, again, it has elements of domination. It's just about domination. If you have more people, that's it. The other people, they don't matter. They don't matter. And you, as a party, you choose who is to represent the people there. So there are elements of democracy which they leave so much to be desired. And if we are going to say, okay, the MPs or even the lords in this country are the Council of Elders, then it's not representative at all. In fact, the Lords is worse because with the Lords, they are hereditary Lords, hereditary peers in this country who have had their titles handed down from generation to generation. And I can say in my country it's a bit different. But again, it's more or less similar because these are all Mushweshwe's descendants in a way. And there are a few other chiefs who come from different kings who join Mushweshwe later. But majority is always handed down from generation to generation. So I don't know what the council of elders should look like. It could be people who have served before. So let's look, for instance, Mbeki, Mkapa, Benjamin Mkapa, and the others. They sort of have a council of elders on a continental scale, on a continental level. But we don't have anything like that in our countries because our politicians, they refuse to leave power until they are dead. So you can't even have a council of elders. Thank you.
Thank you. I heard Museveni said that his daughter said he still have 20 years to live, so maybe he will be having 20 years to still rule Uganda. Let's anybody still have the comment on this? So this is the third line of defense. The first line of defense is the royal family, who are responsible to ensure that the leader is not despotic. The second line of defense was the inner privy circle, the people that advise us. The third line of defense was the council of elders. Now, there's a fourth line of defense. And the fourth line of defense is what you're going to arrive at as we try to bring this our class to an end, is the final defense, who is the people now. It said, if a tyrannical chief or a ruler manages to overrun the various line of defenses, the people might exercise the exit option. That is, they vote with their feet to go and settle somewhere else. So if you don't listen to your old structures, then we are not accepting you to be our king. We are not going to be your subject. And therefore, we will leave you with your so-called kingdom and walk away and start our own things. So the history is very clear that the chief cannot stop them because he has no instrument of force or coercion to do so. This is very important. Our chiefs did not own the instrument of force or coercion. They are not the commander-in-chiefs like this, our so-called commander-in-chief. In fact, I don't know how it becomes commander-in-chief. But they could allow the people. So if people express that they're not happy with you, they walk away. They go settle somewhere. So I think it was also one of the fear they made to the king. And that the king knew that if I'm a despot, the majority of people will walk away from my kingdom. And my kingdom will become weak. So they said the history of the world is full of such migration of people, which still continues up to date, where you see people are running away as refugees or political. So some people just find the country is not working, let's walk away. Oh, the things are not okay. Like in Kenya here, the businesses have been running away. So in this way was the last line of defense. So if everybody walks away, then who are you going to rule? I don't know what you think about that last line of defense. Anybody want to share something on that?
Yes. I'm just wondering, because I'm thinking Africa in ancient times had space for people to just walk away, establish your own chiefdom or something like that. I think I'm just being romantic. But these days, if you migrate to South Africa from Zimbabwe, they'll keep kicking you back. So even if you voted with your feet, you have to go back and sort things out. And it makes it really difficult, because I remember very well in the 90s, we had a politician who was famous for saying to people who were migrating, you'd better go because I think we can do with half the number of people we have in this country. And they'd be saying it openly and showing people that they were not going to change anything. This has led me to believe that instead of voting with our feet, because once you vote with your feet, it's very expensive. Because I'm not saying expensive in terms of monetary, but just emotional and sense of belonging and everything that goes with being forced to change. It has made me wonder whether it is prudent of us to adopt the two systems that we have. Because during the colonial period, the colonial master could not impose his way of rule on us. So they established a dual system because they wanted the people to be contained within the framework of the laws that they had, but they put the traditional laws under them. Is there any hope that we can get rid of this democracy? Because I strongly believe that if we are to have representation in the groups that we had before colonization into some kind of parliament, some kind of national bodies that we can have, then we're not going to have a person who has got political alliances that have nothing to do with the development of a particular area. I think I said this in one group. I live in a city where the city mayor does not live here. He's my councillor, but he is not here. He works in the capital city. And the question is, how does that happen? That we have somebody who has nothing to do with this place, who's appointed by a political party, and they just say, oh, Mr. So-and-so, I think you can go and represent these people because you've got a better chance of winning in that area in our party than, and we are left with somebody who doesn't have any interest of the people in that place. So if we went back to having chiefs who are hereditary, who are in the place, who are interested in having a bridge built, in having a dam built, people with Ubuntu at heart, I hope. I mean, I think it would make sense because then we would have somebody who's in charge with a sense of belonging. Because right now, we have selfish people who are representing themselves, representing their self-interest, and not representing our interests. I know it could be radical, but is it possible that we've got a system already that we can use to get people accountable to the people in place? I yield.
Thank you. Anybody else who want to share something in regards to this?
If there's no one else coming in, let me come in. And
Please
say,
go ahead.
do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. There was a video which I saw which compared the Chinese system with the British system. In fact, it starts by saying the British, when they speak, they say the Chinese are not democratic. But when you look at them and compare China, you say the Chinese are more democratic than them. Because with the Chinese, for you to be elected into their Politburo, you'll have had to go from the grassroots, go through all of their systems until you get there. You're only elected to the top, the echelon of their party because you have gone through different levels of their party. You have been at the local council, district council, provincial council, all of them, and you have shown you have competence to deliver. Okay? But what Sister Tapua has said is actually very, very important because let's look at Rishi Sunak right now. Rishi Sunak was doing well in the city, making lots of money. Then he joins the Conservative Party and they appointed him as an MP somewhere else. He becomes an MP in just another constituency anywhere. He doesn't have to live there. And then after that, he goes and works in Westminster, representing that constituency. And it becomes worse the minute they become a chancellor or a secretary of state or anything, because they never ever have to go back and serve the people who they were elected to serve. Well, you can argue that some of the local people here, being the British, they don't really have a lot that they ask of the MPs. But let's look at people who are asylum seekers or migrants, people who really need help. They need their MPs to advocate them for them. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. If I go to my MP here and say, okay, I have someone here who's from Lesotho, they have been struggling. What are you doing about it? They will tell you there's a law like this, which helps, which deals with people from the Commonwealth countries. So there is no representation. It's again an illusion. It's an illusion for the elites to continue monopolizing power at our expense, which Noam Chomsky have elaborated on in manufactured consent. And the system goes on and on. So with regards to voting with our feet, I know what Sister Pua is saying. You cannot go away. There is no way that you can move away from Lesotho and say, I'm not going to vote. They continue the votes either way, whether you are there or not, whether it's 12% of the vote turnout or not. I cover Tunisia as part of my other role somewhere. Tunisian president changed the constitution. I think about 20% of the people accepted that constitution. Majority of people refused to turn out. And then the elections came. Again, less than 40% of the people turn out. In fact, they say about 12%. And nobody complains about that if they are allies of the West. If they're allies of the West, they're helping people to stop migrants moving into the Mediterranean through Tunisia. It's okay. It's okay. And they are still using the dollar as an exchange rate. It's okay. The United States will not do anything. The European Union will not do anything. So voting with our feet, it doesn't work in this case. It used to work in the case where Africa was still open. If one chief wasn't serving you, you move to the next chief. But in this case, sorry, my brother, it doesn't work.
Thank you, Brother Coco. Sister Chisomo Sawilok.
I'll come in.
Maybe. Oh, sorry. Proceed.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know if I can only speak for my own country. We don't have this system we are reading here. So it's only political parties. Political parties who then select the MPs and councillors. And then we have the president being a completely different system. They stand on their own and we elect one of them. So this thing about, and we don't do, because in the past we have people being elected, like everybody is saying, who don't. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Sister Chisomo.
Yeah, could you not hear me? Hello? Hello?
We can hear you, Sister Chisomo. I think
Okay.
maybe Big is having issues. But
Okay.
continue.
Yeah. So these people, we've had this all along, people representing constituencies that they don't live in, and they live elsewhere. And we don't have a system like we have here in the UK, whereby you go to your MP for this and that, your councillor for this and that, because we have a mixture of chiefs in the same constituency, chiefs and sub-TAs, some whatever. So you don't know who to go for what. Traditionally, people just go to chiefs. So we don't have like wards where you would go for an MP to go and discuss things, or a councillor. So what's happening this year, because we've got elections in about 150 days to go. So it starts with what they call primary elections. So different parties will put out, let's say in one constituency, they will have people who are interested. So one party will have people who are interested to stand in that constituency. So they will have maybe 5. But what's been happening is, so people who want to stand in a particular constituency, but their party will say, no, we want this one to stand there. So it goes back to that thing. People they can control, people they can work with, blah, blah, blah. So they'll say, no, this one is the one standing there. And then the person will be saying, but I want to stand there. And they start fighting. So once the party has decided we want this one, the other person then decides, I'm going to go independent. And sometimes the independent person then wins because they don't want whoever the party has brought in. But this time it's been different. So the party will choose, or the person will choose. But what's happening now, the people, the local people, have been discussing just before all this happened to say, this time we are not allowing anybody that doesn't live here to stand for us. So it's been going on into all sorts of different platforms. Do not accept anybody who does not live here. If we have our own people that say they want to stand, those are the ones we're going to elect. At first it sounded like a joke, meaning how can that happen? How can they just choose anybody from their local person and then the party accepts? So then the primary elections have started. All the big names are dropping one by one because the people do not want them. You don't live here, you don't represent us, you can't represent us. They'll refuse for them to stand in that area. They'll choose their own person to stand for them, and they're electing that person. So they are the people who are going to stand in the real elections as MPs, which is a big movement and a big development for us. So people now understand that they cannot dominate politics. They are not a whatever. We can now choose who we want in our local area. You can't impose people on us. So that's what's been happening. In fact, the whole day today, we've been watching people just being dropped. Names you did not or they didn't expect they'll ever come out of politics, but it's happening now. So it might happen in Zimbabwe as well, Tapua. At one point, it's happening in a place like Malawi. People are putting their feet down and saying, no, you cannot impose anybody on us. We're not having it. That's what I wanted. So as for the system we're reading in the book, I see it in the royal family in the United Kingdom. There is a lot of checks and balances within. There's a lot of protection within. If things go wrong or somebody puts a foot wrong, they quickly try to correct the damage. Not so successfully, sometimes successfully. We've seen people vote with their feet. Harry went, there was somebody before who did that, married outside the whatever and left the community and went and lived elsewhere. So, they have maintained their whatever tradition, and it just lives on. I don't know what's happening now. I'm not following what's happening now with Charles being ill and Kate being ill and all this. I just see that there being some announcements being made, but I haven't closely watched what's being made. But I followed when the Queen died and Charles was taking over, and I thought that is the most powerful I've ever seen. That these people have a tradition that they followed for so long, and it works, and nobody can question it. Nobody except themselves. So that's an interesting dimension. Thank you.
Sawundo?
Rather no comment, my brother.
Okay, then we've come back to an end of our session today. So then let's look forward to the next Sunday then.
Thank you.
Before we go, a quick one. I won't take a minute. You find that the national, on a national level, they don't care what happens on a local level. But if we had a system in which, as a prime minister or a president, you are looking carefully at what's happening on a local level, then it will work. Because then that will enable people to move between different constituencies or between different wards, different something. There have to be some metrics that are used. There has to be. It cannot be this way where it lacks accountability. Thank you.
So thank you all. We will continue with this chapter and finish it probably next week. That will be the last class on this chapter, and then we go to the next chapter. Because the next chapter now, from next week, once we finish this chapter, we'll be going to the next chapter, which will basically now look to other elements of now dictatorship across the continent and across the globe. But yeah, let's continue learning this, because in one way or the other, we are trying now to understand what was working then that they don't tell us. So thank you very much for your attendance today, and see you next weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, comrades. Thank you. Have a good night.